Picture this. It's September, and you're proudly pulling a big, juicy carrot or a plump, dark crimson beet from the earth. The harvest feels like a massive success, doesn't it? But what if I told you that in this very moment, amidst your excitement and haste, you could make a mistake that undoes half your hard work? Today, we're going to break down the crucial don'ts for carrots and beets in September. These aren't just tips, they're essential rules that will help your harvest survive the winter and not turn into a rotten mess by New Year's. Watch until the very end and you'll uncover the secret experience gardeners use for perfect root vegetable storage. Why is September so critical, you ask? It's precisely when carrots and beets are at their peak. They're actively accumulating sugars and vitamins, preparing themselves for the cold months ahead. Any wrong move, any rush, can stress the plant and trigger irreversible processes. You might think you're helping by harvesting early, but in reality, you're robbing them of the vitality they need for long-term storage. So let's kick things off with the most common and tricky pitfall even seasoned gardeners make. It's the habit of looking at the calendar instead of observing the plants. A lot of us still do things the old way, thinking, it's late September, time to dig up those carrots. But this is a deeply flawed approach that could cost you a big chunk of your yield. Think about it. Is the weather in southern regions the same as in northern ones? Of course not. The same carrot variety will be ready for harvest much earlier in warmer climates than in more temperate or northern regions. The calendar doesn't account for your geographical location or this particular summer's weather conditions. After all, it could have been cold and rainy, or conversely, hot and dry. All these factors directly influence when your crops mature. If you rush and dig up your carrots simply because the calendar says it's time, you'll end up with underripe root vegetables. They won't have had time to reach their full weight, flavour, and most importantly, the sugars crucial for long-term storage. Such carrots will be watery, bland, and will quickly shrivel in storage. On the flip side, if you blindly wait for that magic date, you might miss sudden severe frosts that could damage the exposed root tops. And any frost-damaged part is an open invitation for rot and disease. So the first rule for September is clear. Forget about specific dates. Your primary indicator is the condition of the plant itself and the weather forecast for the coming weeks. All right, if the calendar isn't the answer, then what is? The solution is right there, staring you in the face, in your garden beds. Your plants themselves will give you the signal. You just need to learn how to read it correctly. Go to your carrots and carefully examine their foliage. The surest sign of maturity is when the lower leaves begin to yellow, dry out and flop over, lying flat on the ground. This is a completely natural process. It means the plant has stopped actively growing greens and is now redirecting all its stored sap and nutrients from the leaves into the root itself. This is precisely when carrots become their sweetest and densest, perfect for winter storage. It's important not to mistake this for a disease though. During ripening, it's specifically the lower, spun, oldest leaves that yellow and wither, while the central cluster of greens still remains vibrant. You'll see a similar pattern with beets. Their robust lower leaves will start to wilt, yellow and dry along the edges. If the root itself has reached its full varietal size and its appealing shoulder has rounded out and emerged from the soil, that's your clear signal to harvest. By learning to read these simple signs, you'll always harvest your crops at just the right moment, ensuring maximum flavour and nutritional value. Now, let's address a popular myth that's been passed down by word of mouth and sounds incredibly convincing. The idea that the first frost makes carrots sweeter. There's a kernel of truth to this statement. But as always, the devil is in the details. It's true that when soil temperatures drop to around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, a protective mechanism kicks in within root vegetables. Starch actively begins to convert into sugars. This acts as a kind of natural antifreeze, preventing the cells from freezing. And yes, this does make the carrots slightly sweeter. However, the key word here is chilling or cooling down, not hard frost. A light overnight dew or a brief drop in temperature to 0 degrees Celsius won't cause any harm, but a full-blown sustained frost, where the soil freezes even by a centimetre, is a different story. It's a disaster. The part of the root vegetable near the surface gets frostbitten. Its tissues are damaged, becoming watery and mushy. You might not even notice it from the outside, but inside the process of decay has already begun. Such frost-damaged carrots won't store well. They'll start to rot from the top, spreading spoilage to healthy carrots nearby. So playing this sugar roulette and deliberately waiting for hard frosts is extremely risky. So you've got the timing just right. The carrot tops are signalling readiness, and the weather's absolutely perfect. What could possibly go wrong, you ask? A lot, actually. The biggest temptation at this stage is to rush the job, to grab the lush, green foliage and yank the carrot out of the ground with one swift, sharp pull. Sound familiar? Never ever do this, especially if your soil is dense or has a high clay content. There's a 90% chance you'll either snap off the tops, leaving the root behind, or even worse, break off its delicate tapered tip. Any break, crack, or even a deep scratch creates an open wound on the vegetable. Think of it as an open gateway for legions of rot-causing bacteria and fungi to invade during storage. These injured specimens are always the first to spoil, so completely abandon this barbaric method. Your best friends in this endeavour are a garden fork, or, if absolutely necessary, a carefully used spade. The proper technique is a delicate operation, not a test of strength. Let's go over the proper digging technique that will keep your root vegetables whole and undamaged. Grab your garden fork, stand about 10 to 15 centimetres or 4 to 6 inches away from the carrot row. This is crucial to avoid piercing the root itself. Insert the fork vertically into the soil, going good and deep, then gently, without any sudden movements, rock the handle back towards you. You'll feel the ground, along with the root vegetables, lift slightly. The soil around the carrots will become loose. Only then can you carefully grasp the base of the greens and easily, without effort, pull the carrot from the loosened earth. It will slide out like a dream. Beets are a little simpler since they don't sit as deep, but the principle is the same. First, loosen the soil around them from the side, lift the ground, and only then pull them out. This two-step method, loosening the soil and then extracting, guarantees you won't damage their tender skin or snap off their delicate tips. Yes, it takes a bit more time than simply yanking them out, but that extra half hour of careful work in the garden will reward you with additional months of winter storage for your harvest. Trust me, it's absolutely worth the effort. Next, and equally crucial, is the weather. Choosing the right day for harvesting is just as vital as the technique you employ. Under no circumstances should you harvest carrots and beets in rainy weather, or immediately after a heavy downpour when the soil is like liquid mud. Why? First, it's simply unpleasant and messy. But that's only the start of the problems. The real issue is that root vegetables pulled from wet soil will be completely caked in heavy, raw earth. Cleaning them without damaging their delicate skin is almost impossible. If left to dry in this state, that mud will harden into a tough crust, trapping moisture and creating the perfect environment for rot to set in. Secondly, a root vegetable dug from waterlogged soil will be saturated with excessive moisture. This makes them watery and much more vulnerable to storage diseases. The ideal scenario is to choose a dry, sunny, and preferably breezy day. Ideally, there should have been no rain for several days prior. Then the soil will be loose and friable, easily falling away from the root vegetables, leaving behind just a fine coating of dry dust, which actually provides an extra layer of protection. Clean work and a healthy, long-lasting harvest. That's the payoff for choosing your day wisely. All right, you've carefully harvested your root vegetables from the soil. What's the very next step? The absolute first and most crucial task is to trim off the greens, and you need to do it immediately, right there in the garden, within the first 15 to 20 minutes after digging them up. Whatever you do, don't postpone this step, and definitely don't carry your leafy vegetables into the shed. Why the rush? As long as the greens are still attached to the root, they're very much alive, and to sustain themselves, they need moisture and nutrients. Where do they get them? From the only source available, the carrot or beet itself. Those vigorous leaves act like a pump, relentlessly drawing vital moisture and precious sugars right out of your root crop. In just a few hours, especially if your harvest is sitting in the sun, those greens can turn a crisp carrot soft and rubbery. Give it a full day, and that firm, juicy vegetable will transform into a limp, spongy mess, utterly unfit for long-term storage. It simply won't make it through the winter. So, the rule is simple. Dig 'em up, snip 'em off, immediately. This immediately halts the outflow of vital nutrients and moisture, effectively locking in your root vegetable in the perfect fresh state you harvested it in. However, even the simple act of topping foliage has its specific techniques. What's the right way to do it? This is where many people make mistakes. The first common error is twisting or snapping off the greens by hand. You should never do this. Twisting creates a ragged wound on the top of the root vegetable, which then becomes an open invitation for rot and decay. The second mistake is cutting the foliage completely flush with the crown of the root, often called cutting to zero. While it might seem tidier, this approach is also incorrect. By cutting the greens off completely, you risk damaging the plant's delicate growth point. This, in turn, can trick the root vegetable into trying to regrow new greens, even in the cellar. This process significantly depletes its stored energy and drastically shortens its shelf life. So, what's the correct method? Use a sharp knife or garden shears. Trim the foliage, leaving a small stem, or stump, about 1 to 2 centimeters high. Over time, this small stem will dry out and form a dense, impenetrable cap, or seal. This protective layer effectively seals off the top of the root vegetable, preventing moisture loss and blocking the entry of diseases or infections. It's a small detail, but it plays a crucial role in ensuring long-term storage and preserving the quality of your harvest. Our next storage no-no involves cleanliness, or rather, overdoing it. When you pull a vegetable straight from the soil, what's your first instinct? To wash it, right? To get rid of all that dirt, making it perfectly clean and shiny. But here's where you need to hit the brakes. Washing carrots, beets, or any root vegetable before putting them into long-term storage is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Why? Let's dive in. That thin layer of dry soil, the native earth, clinging to your root vegetables after they've dried. It's not dirt. It's actually their natural protective shield. It's packed with beneficial soil microorganisms that create a unique microflora, actively suppressing the growth of harmful pathogens. When you wash these vegetables, especially with tap water, you strip away this vital protection. What's more, the washing and subsequent scrubbing inevitably create thousands of tiny, imperceptible micro-scratches on their delicate skin. While invisible to the naked eye, these are wide open, inviting gateways for bacteria and mold spores. A wet, unprotected root vegetable becomes the perfect breeding ground for all types of rot. So, remember this golden rule. Only wash root vegetables immediately before you're ready to eat them, not before sending them off to storage. For long-term keeping, they should be dry and lightly dusted with their native soil. So you've harvested your root crops in dry weather, meticulously trimmed their tops, and now they're lying on the ground. The crucial next step, often overlooked in the rush, is what we call the curing or drying period. Whatever you do, don't rush them straight into a cold, damp cellar. That's a shock to the root vegetables, which will cause condensation to form on their surface, inevitably leading to quick spoilage and rot. They need a chance to acclimate. Find a suitable spot. This could be under a canopy, on a covered porch, in a shed, or simply a shady, well-ventilated area in your garden. It's crucial that direct sunlight doesn't hit the vegetables, as this can cause sunburn and kickstart the wilting process. Lay out your carrots and beets in a single layer, perhaps on a tarp, some cardboard, or old wooden planks. Do not pile them up. In a heap, they won't dry out properly. They'll start to suffocate and sweat. Leave them like this for a few hours, typically 2 to 6, depending on the weather conditions. During this time, any remaining surface moisture will evaporate, clinging soil will dry and easily brush off, and the root vegetable's internal temperature will gently equalize with the ambient air. So what exactly goes on during this crucial curing period? while your freshly harvested produce rests in the shade. This is when vital natural self-preservation mechanisms kick into gear. Any minor injuries that inevitably occur during harvesting, scratches, abrasions, or where tiny rootlets have snapped off, begin to dry and heal over. A thin, protective, cork-like layer forms over these spots. Acting like a natural bandage, it seals off the damaged area, preventing infections from entering the root vegetable. If you skip this crucial step and immediately transfer damp, freshly dug vegetables with unhealed wounds to a cool cellar, those scratches will never close up. Instead, in a moist environment, they'll become the perfect breeding ground for mold and rot. So, make sure to give your harvest this essential time to self-heal. Just a few hours in the fresh air is the best way to prevent storage diseases. It won't cost you a dime, but it will save the vast majority of your harvest. This simple agricultural practice is one of the key secrets to successfully storing root vegetables through winter. Now that your harvest is dry and cool, it's time for the most critical and, arguably, the most ruthless stage, sorting. Before you pack your root vegetables into boxes or bags for storage, you'll need to sort them meticulously. Approach this task with the precision of a surgeon. Set aside anything that raises even the slightest doubt. So, what exactly are we looking for? First, any mechanical damage, cracks, deep scratches, shovel cuts, or broken tips. These simply won't keep. Second, inspect for root vegetables damaged by pests, like carrot rust fly or wireworms. Their telltale tunnels are a direct invitation for infection. Third, cull any deformed, forked, or overly small carrots. They'll shrivel up and lose moisture faster. And finally, watch out for any signs of disease, dark spots, soft patches, or any indication of rot. Keep this golden rule in mind. Just one diseased root vegetable placed among healthy ones can contaminate the entire batch within a month or two. Rot is highly contagious and spreads rapidly to its neighbours, so be a strict quality controller. It's far better to reject 5 borderline carrots now than to lose 5 kilograms of your prime harvest later. All right, you might say, I've just sorted through a huge pile of imperfect root vegetables. So what now? Do I just toss it all? What a waste of all that effort. Of course not. There's absolutely no need to throw anything away. The key here is the divide and conquer principle. Everything you've set aside that's still perfectly edible simply goes into a separate category. Let's call it the use soon pile. Slightly bruised, nicked, or simply too big or too small, these root vegetables are perfect for immediate use. Whip up salads, soups, or juices, sauté them, or simply freeze them. They're also fantastic for making winter preserves. Think borscht base, beet spread, or Korean-style carrot salad. The main thing is to process them within the next week or two before they go bad. This way, you won't lose a single bit of your harvest. You're simply dividing your harvest into 2 streams. The perfect, top-quality specimens go into long-term winter storage, while the seconds, those that aren't quite perfect, get used up right away and happily. It's a smart, thrifty approach that ensures you utilise 100% of your homegrown produce. Let's now delve into the unique characteristics of our 2 stars. While we often group them together, carrots and beets are distinct personalities, each with slightly different storage requirements. Carrots, in particular, are surprisingly delicate. Their main vulnerability is rapid moisture loss. Their thin skin struggles to retain turgor, meaning if left simply in a box, they'll quickly become limp and soft. They thrive on stability and high humidity, but not excessive dampness. Ideal conditions for carrots are temperatures around 0 to 2 degrees Celsius, 32 or 36 degrees, and a high relative humidity of about 90 to 95%. Achieving these conditions in a typical root cellar can be challenging. This is why carrots often require extra packaging. They're frequently layered in moist sand, sphagnum moss, or kept in tightly sealed plastic bags with small ventilation holes. These methods help create a localized microclimate around each carrot, effectively preventing them from drying out and wilting. Without understanding this crucial detail, Even a perfectly harvested and prepared carrot crop can be lost simply due to dehydration. Unlike finicky carrots, beets are a much hardier and more forgiving vegetable. Their thick, sturdy skin retains moisture far better, making them less prone to wilting. They're also much easier to store, often just piled into well-ventilated crates or bins. However, even beets have their vulnerabilities. Their main enemy in storage is excess moisture and condensation. If the root cellar is too damp, or if crates are placed directly on a cold concrete floor, water droplets will begin to form on their surface. Any surface moisture is a direct invitation for rot, mold, and various fungal diseases. Beets also dislike overly warm temperatures. If the cellar temperatures rise above 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, they might prematurely think spring has arrived and begin to sprout young leaves. This process severely depletes the root, making it tough and fibrous. So for beets, the essentials are dryness and coolness. They are often stored on top of potatoes, as potatoes release excess moisture which beets then absorb, creating a mutually beneficial microclimate. At first glance, all these procedures, choosing the right day, careful digging, trimming, drying and sorting, might seem overly complicated and time-consuming. It's tempting to cut corners, quickly pull up your harvest, dump it into buckets and haul it down to the cellar, thinking it'll somehow survive the winter. But this very haste, this get it all done in an hour mentality, is precisely why people find their stored vegetables rotted and shriveled by midwinter. Understand that each of these steps isn't an arbitrary whim. It's a vital element of a preservation method refined over decades. Skip even one of them, and you disrupt the entire chain. It's like building a house but skimping on the foundation. It might look fine on the surface, but it won't stand the test of time. That's why it's far better to dedicate one beautiful September day to a slow, proper, and methodical harvest. That single day's effort will pay off handsomely when, in February or March, you're pulling firm, crisp carrots and juicy, sweet beets from your cellar, tasting as if they were just harvested. Your time and effort are the best investment you can make in the longevity of your harvest. And finally, to wrap up our discussion on optimal harvesting times, remember this simple truth. As long as a root vegetable stays in the ground, in its natural environment, it's alive. It continues to breathe, develop, and most importantly for us, accumulate vital nutrients. It's specifically during those crisp, yet still frost-free September days, after the summer heat has mellowed, that carrots and beets really kick into high gear, actively accumulating sugars. Day by day, they become sweeter, more flavourful, and more nutritious. By pulling your harvest too early, say in late August or early September, just out of an unwarranted fear of what if something goes wrong, you're essentially shortchanging yourself. You end up with produce that hasn't yet reached its peak flavour and nutritional potential. Yes, it'll be edible, but it won't be nearly as delicious or beneficial as it could have been had it remained in the soil for just a couple more weeks. So don't rush nature. Allow your harvest to fully mature. Watch your plants. Keep an eye on the weather, and you'll be rewarded with more than just vegetables. You'll get a true concentrate of flavour and goodness that will brighten your table all through the long winter. Now let's talk about the most crucial points that will radically change how you think about storing your harvest. The first game changer is immediate topping of the greens. Many growers leave them on for a day or two, and that's a critical error. In just 24 hours, the leaves can draw up to a third of the moisture out of your carrots, transforming a firm root into a soft, spongy one, unfit for long-term storage. This isn't just a tip, it's a fundamental rule for retaining moisture. And the second, perhaps most counterintuitive secret, is a strict no-washing policy. Our desire for pristine produce actually works against us here. The soil where the root vegetable grew contains beneficial microorganisms that form a thin, protective film. Rinsing it off with tap water not only introduces unwanted bacteria to the surface, but also damages the delicate skin, opening thousands of tiny entry points for infections. Root vegetables stored dirty, but dry, last significantly longer. This is a case where cleanliness is the enemy of longevity. So, the main takeaway is simple. Don't rush. Listen to your plants, keep an eye on the weather, and follow proper harvesting techniques. Correct preparation is 90% of the success in keeping your carrot and beet harvest fresh all the way until spring. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope these tips were helpful. If so, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Now, a question for you. What storage problems have you encountered most often with carrots and beets? Share your experience in the comments below. Let's discuss.